Hello, lovely beings. I'm JJ Rose. Happy New Year. Well, since it is a new year, I wanted to do an episode on manifestation. So, the true art of manifesting is to create or turn something from an idea into a reality. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about manifestation in general, the best steps, the best tips, and also some of the pitfalls. And then I'm going to give some examples of ways I've seen manifesting go really, really well and the opposite very, very wrong, in order to just kind of back up the principles of what it is I'm trying to say. So let's start with number one. The biggest thing that I see about manifestation is people make it an idea, but they're not truly envisioning it, and how I like to call it, trying it on for size. So when you go to a store and you're going to buy clothes or shoes or, whatever, even furniture, you're usually measuring the furniture, right, to make sure it's going to fit in your space. If you're trying on clothes or shoes, you're usually going into the fitting room, you're trying them on, making sure that the style looks good on you. Is it your size? If it's shoes, can you walk around in them? Why wouldn't you do the same thing when it comes to manifesting something? And when you're able to do this, when you're really able to try something on for size in your mind, you can see if it has any place being in your life or not. Because a lot of times what I hear about when people are manifesting is they're talking about, great, I'm manifesting money. Okay, well, if you're manifesting $1 billion, what does that look like? What does your life look like? As with anything in life, sometimes too much of anything can create more issues than it can necessarily the joy and the love and the happiness that you expect from it. The next thing is when you're trying it on for size, you really need to ask yourself, are you willing to go through the steps needed in order to have this manifestation come into fruition? And the reason I bring this up is because typically around the new year, right, the biggest thing that we hear about are people want to lose weight or they want to get in shape. So all these people buy gym memberships and they'll buy themselves beautiful gym clothes, and it lasts for about a week or two and then they're done because life gets in the way, they're too busy, they don't wanna, all the things, right? The weather in the northern hemisphere is usually pretty cruddy, so you're not necessarily wanting to be outside. There's all sorts of different reasons. So if you are trying to manifest something, you need to make sure that it actually is going to fit within your lifestyle. What is comfortable to you? Now, I also bring this up in regards to manifesting partners, friendships, romantic relationships. There's a lot of times when it sounds great. I want my life to be like a Hallmark movie, and I go into a small little town and the person who works at the Christmas tree lot, all of a sudden we fall in love and, I become the parent to their widowed child, all the things. But when you really look at your life, are you ready for that type of partnership? Are you in an emotional place that you have the space to be a good partner back to this person? I have seen people manifest amazing partners, but they haven't done any work whatsoever on themselves to be a good partner back. So then the relationship fizzles very quickly because they didn't hold up their end of the deal. Yes, this amazing person came into their life, but that amazing person's only going to stick around so long if you're not doing the work that you need to do in order to make sure that you're going to be the right kind of partner back for that person. Same thing goes for friendships. I've heard people say, oh, I want to manifest more friends that I can go do X, Y, and Z with or whatever. But they're not realizing, okay, now that I have these people in my life, in order to be a friend, in order to have friends, I have to be a friend. What does that look like? Well, typically with friendships, you need to reach out. You need to have contact. You need to be in a place where you can actually be a friend for them. Is your house in order enough that you could have people over? Is your emotional house in order enough that you can take on other people's issues and venting? Are you willing to be an active participant in the friendship? Or do you just want some really cool people that you can hang out with socially and do things with, but really have no depth to that friendship? These are all the reasons why I say try whatever it is that you're trying to manifest on for size. Make sure that it actually fits your life. Make sure that it's actually something you want. I have talked to people up and down every which way in their lives. Doesn't matter what age, where they're at in life, nothing. And the same thing holds true, that we are spoon-fed through society and through media, through movies and shows and magazines, what, quote unquote, our lives are supposed to look like, what we're supposed to look like, what we're supposed to be doing. The reality of it is that that does not work for everyone. You know, my relationship, even with my husband, that wouldn't work for a lot of other people. They would not have the emotional capacity for it. Maybe they wouldn't have the patience. Maybe they wouldn't have the tolerance or the caring. Maybe they wouldn't have the time to commit in order to have that type of relationship. I've seen other relationships where I've looked at it, they're quite happy, but that would not work for me. That would not feed me emotionally. It would not nourish my life in any way, shape, or form, but it works great for them because they're different people. So part of this manifestation process, you really need to be honest with yourself. And there is nothing wrong with really doing the internal work that you need to do and saying, hey, even though society tells me my life's supposed to look like XYZ, that doesn't work for me. There is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. We are all individuals. We have come a very, very far way from, even the 1950s and 60s where there were expectations of, oh, you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to have kids, 2.5 kids, and White House, picket fence, the whole shebang. That doesn't work for everyone. I know people who have literally uprooted their entire lives and all they do is travel. They have no solid partner. They date here and there, but that's what feeds them. And there's nothing wrong with that. And who's to say that they're ever going to settle down or that they even need to? If that doesn't work for them and that's not their path, why would you force your ideals on them? Just because you're happy in a partnership doesn't mean they would be. I also know people who say, quote unquote, a lot that they want a partner or whatever it is. And yet when you really look at them, their attitude, their emotional capacity, their life in general, there's no room for that partner to even be there. So again, part of the manifestation process is really getting down and dirty and honest with yourself as to what fits in your life, what you're willing to put up with, what you want to put up with, what are you willing to make time for, what are you willing to forfeit in your life in order to have whatever it is that you're asking to manifest. Now, on an even deeper spiritual level, there are a lot of things out there that tell you you're only spiritual if ... right? If you meditate 12 hours a day, or if you do this, or if you do that. And people get caught up in what works for somebody else. There are people out there who need to meditate 12 hours a day. They have the room for it. They have the time for it. They have the monetary means in order to do that. And that's what they need to do for their spiritual path. Is that for everyone? No. And if you're wondering, how are ways that I can be more spiritual or inculcate this within my life and not feel like I need to sit on a pillow and meditate for 12 hours a day and do whatever it is, give up my whole life and wander the world. I have a video on light workers and what light work looks like. And I advise you check it out, even if light work is not your path. I feel like that was a really great example of different ways that the spiritual work can get done without you necessarily having to fit into the constraints of whatever someone's telling you spirituality is. I've been very honest with all of you. I do not do this work for a living. This is not my day job. I move time around in my life in order to make these YouTube audios. I move time around in my life in order to talk to people who need help or who have questions, to try and be there to teach. But it's taken me a lot of years to get to the point where I am today for that to have actually manifested, that I actually have the time and energy in order to do this as side work. And if there is a day when Spirit says, hey, I need you to do this on an everyday basis, on a bigger scale, fine, I will. And my life will move around and it will manifest. Therefore, I'm not holding that back. I keep that point a little bit open for the universe, Spirit, God, Creator, whatever you want to call it, in order to guide me on my path. And I would wish the same for you. Allow a little bit of wiggle room for the universe, God, Creator, Spirit, Source, in order to make that manifestation happen in the best way for you. Now, here's one of the interesting parts when it comes to manifestation. You have to take the first steps. You're not just going to wish it in your mind and then it's going to pop up the next day. That usually takes a while to get to that point. Although I do have some stories that I will tell shortly about people who have gotten to that point. But when you have tried it on for size, you've written down your list or written it down, typed it, whatever it is, however it is that you're doing your manifestations. When you've got all that in order, you've pinned down what it is that you want, you've done all the check marks to make sure you have time, emotional capacity, physical capacity, you're willing to do the steps in order to get whatever it is that you're trying to manifest done. Okay, here's the next part. You have to remove the fear. And this is the biggest thing that I see when people are trying to do manifestation work, is they start tripping all over themselves. Once they've set it into motion, this little fear bug comes into their ear and starts telling them it's never going to happen, or, doubt. All the negative things start coming at them. So you need to be strong enough in order to fend those off. It has to be conviction within you that this, whatever it is you're manifesting, is going to happen. And the reason why I'm so firm on that is because I've been around long enough and seen enough people do this that I've seen a lot of people get in their own way. And this is why a lot of people get frustrated with manifestation work, because they're thinking, why is it that I'm putting all this energy into this and nothing is happening? Well, the only factor is you. That being said, there are times when Spirit is going to say a resounding no to whatever it is that you're trying to manifest. So you also have to be open enough to listen to that. If you've tried to manifest the same thing 800 times and it never happens, and you have no fear, and you're not tripping all over your own self to undo whatever it is that you try to manifest, and Spirit keeps saying no and pointing you in another direction, you've got to listen. I've used this example before. You're just ramming your head into a brick wall over and over and over again. Stop, take a minute, shake the dust off, and then turn around and take a look and see how many open doors are on the sides or behind you of different ways that Spirit is trying to get you into that manifestation location. And it might be a little bit different than what you had in your mind. But again, this is why in manifestation work, you have to have a little bit of wiggle room for the universe to work its magic. So let me give some examples. I went to a class years ago on manifestation. And, this is a room full of very diverse people with very diverse backgrounds, everything under the sun. And there was this one person in particular who wrote this list, and it was so detailed. I mean, down to colors and, year, make, and model of the car, very specific. Dollar amounts that were extremely specific. And when the person was reading them in the class, in order, for the class, in order to help them to manifest it, the biggest thing that everyone in the class felt was A, there was no conviction behind it, and B, it was so detailed that the person was almost setting themselves up for disappointment. And the reason why I mentioned this specific example, because it was so loud for me, is when you specify something so extremely specific, you're almost setting yourself up for failure from the get, because you're not allowing the universe, spirit, God, creator, source, any wiggle room in order to manifest that in your life for your highest good. Because it's very easy for us to say, oh, I know myself, I know my life, I know what's best for me, but you don't always know what's coming down the pike. And I'm a very big living example of that. I had no clue certain things were coming down the pike for me, even though I had kind of had inklings, but I kept myself open to it. There were times I tried to buck it a little bit, and then I would keep getting these kicks from spirits back in order to tell me, like, hey, get back on the right path. You know better. So when you're manifesting, let's say you're trying to manifest the perfect job. Okay, give details of what the perfect job involves for you, whether it's working from home, whether it's an office with a window, whatever it may be, whether you want certain salary, you want benefits, you want this, you want that, but don't get so exact that you're putting down a company name. Don't get so exact that you're putting down, I want exactly this dollar amount and nothing more, nothing less. Give yourself wiggle room. I want more than X amount a year in salary. I want full benefits. And that includes, health, disability, life, whatever else benefits, 401k, pension, etc. Give open answers like that and let the universe manifest in the best way possible. I.e., don't lock yourself in so deep with tiny little specifics that you're going to end up disappointed. When you are manifesting a romantic partner, make sure that you are deserving of that kind of person. And the reason I bring that up is because it's very easy to say, oh, I want the most ideal romantic partner. I want them to have X, Y, and Z traits, and I want them to love me like they've never loved before. Okay, but you also need to throw in there some healthy things like, but I want them to be very healthy and open emotionally. I don't want them to be psychotic and obsessive, because yes, you can actually manifest awful things as well, especially if there is fear behind it. So this is why I'm really doubling down on all of these things for you, because I've seen some manifestations go so awfully wrong. I have actually seen one person who wanted to manifest someone who is so madly in love with them. They would never cheat. They'll always be together. All these wonderful traits. Well, they got it. But unfortunately, the person was a stalker and a psychopath and created nothing but problems and issues, because there was this overabundance of what they wanted. And in reality, the only way that the universe could manifest this for that person would be someone who was so over the top that it would actually drive the person who was manifesting it away. So when I was younger and I would talk to, my parents about what I wanted in my future partner, my forever person, I was always told to make lists. And in those lists, I would put down certain traits that worked for me. Now, I've been doing this since I was in my teens, right? And it wasn't always my forever person. Sometimes it was just my, next partner coming along. And I've kept those lists, which is so interesting because I would work really, really hard and I would do one side of the paper with all the traits that I wanted them to have. And I would do the inner work, make sure that worked for me at the time, etc. Great. But the second chart that I would do was, how am I deserving of that person? So if I want someone, let's say, who's very physically fit and, you know, has the body of an Adonis, right? Like a 12-pack type thing. Well, am I the kind of person that they would be attracted to if I'm not willing to spend 5 hours of my life every day at the gym? Or am I willing to take on having a partner that literally everyone who walks by this person is drooling? Am I willing to put up with that? Or am I going to get jealous? Am I going to have my hackles up all the time because everyone's looking at my partner like that? So little tiny things, and I'm bringing up all these examples again because this is going to reach someone who needs it, and I'm trying to be all over the map so I'm inclusive of everyone and everything. But these are the things to think about. So for my manifestations, I have what it is that I want to manifest, and on the other side, why I am the type of person who is deserving of these things. Now, the reason I bring up my lists and what I've been doing over the years is because I would save them. And what would happen is these partners would manifest, and they would hit almost every single main point on my list. And then, of course, we'd break up over time because I would realize, oh, that didn't necessarily work for me. I'm going to need someone with X, Y, and Z instead. And it was a very big learning process over my years because I would see when I was overly specific how the universe had very small wiggle room for me, and I would end up getting these very strange things that would manifest perfectly to what I wanted. But then I would say, ooh, if only I had given a little more wiggle room on that, that could have manifested in a much more positive way than how my little brain was thinking at the time. So the last one I did before I met my hubby, I had really gone back and actually read all the previous ones that I have done. And I mean, these go back to, like I said, my teenagers, and really looked at what worked, what didn't work, really went over the different relationships, what worked, what didn't work, what do I have time for and room in my life for now, and what works for me now and going forward. Because, you know, obviously when we're younger, we're not always thinking about 20, 30 years out. And when I did that on this last manifestation that I did on my list, I wrote down all the things that I wanted in the partner, and then I wrote down all the things that I was at the time and was moving towards being deserving of someone like this. And I actually, a year or two after I was with my hubby, my now hubby, I actually went back and read the list, and I laughed so hard because there were certain little things that I had put in there that I had kind of forgotten about. But totally fits the bill. So I actually showed him once the entire list, and we had a real good laugh about it because some of the stuff is kind of intricate and personal and strange, but we had a really good laugh about certain things of how quirky both of us are and how we would have to find someone who could match our level of weird and put up with our level of weird. Because let's face it, we all have little weird things about us, right? We all have little unconventional things, our little quirks. And some people probably think they're absolutely delightful. And there's going to be other people who think like, there's no way I'm putting up with that. No, thank you. So the next part is once you've set the manifestation into being, once you have, whether you're doing a ceremony with the moon, whether you're just doing it on any given Tuesday, whatever it is that you do, keep re-envisioning and keep that manifestation alive in your head. Think about it either every morning as you wake up or every night when you go to bed. Keep that envisionment in your mind active because that keeps your energy going towards it. And again, make sure that you remove the fear. Now, the other thing that I've seen happen is when the ball starts rolling, like when the universe actually starts showing you, hey, I'm on your side, I'm getting ready to manifest this for you. I've seen little things pop up in people's life and then they kind of freak out. Like, oh my God, what's happening? And then they start the second guessing or the trying to give it back, which is fine. I mean, if you've manifested something and it starts coming to fruition and you realize, like, oopsie daisy, this is not correct for me, absolutely do the work that you need to do in order to backtrack it or tweak it, change it, and then start putting your energy into that. But for the most part, when the universe starts presenting you with the manifestation, don't second guess it. Don't sit there and say, is this just my mind playing tricks on me, or is the manifestation really happening? Spirit works in really weird and fun, mysterious ways. And over the years, when you get a lot less frustrated with things, it becomes actually really, really fun in order to see how the universe is manifesting it. But sometimes in the beginning, it can be a little bit much, especially now because I've been seeing that Spirit is really working strongly, almost on steroids. So for some of you who are newer to this work with manifestation, don't freak out. When you have that mild little moment of, whoa, take it and smile and really hold that and say thank you. And be thankful when it starts to present itself. And especially with money, you might find $20 on the street one day. That's great. Do the right thing. Take a look around. Did anyone drop this? Is this the car next to him? If it's just sitting there and it's super random and absolutely no one is around you, take the $20, get in your car and go home. Awesome. You just got an extra $20. That's the universe's little way of pinging you on the shoulder and saying, I got you. It's on its way. I'm working up. But if you look at that $20 and you freak out and you're going in the store and posting, lost $20 notes all over the place type of thing, and you're not trusting in the process and you're trying to give it back, then the universe gets a little confused and it's like, well, do you really, really want this? Because I'm giving it to you slowly but surely, and you're trying to push it back on me. So I'm going to give a couple examples, more so than the ones that I've already given. My beloved cousin, who I did do an interview with, I love you, cuz I know you're going to listen to this and you're going to laugh. But yes, I'm throwing you under the bus and I am giving your example. Years and years ago, he had this inherited car. And to be quite honest, the thing was like a boat. It was just a giant car for what he needed at the time. And he wanted this adorable, small, little cute car. And he did all this manifestation work. I want this car. Very specific what he wanted. What he didn't do is put in the premise, I want this in the safest way possible. And he didn't give much wiggle room to the universe. So what ended up happening is one night he was going to pick up food. He was in a parking lot. Parking lots normally aren't places where people speed, right? They're parking lots. For the most part, you're going like 20 miles an hour and under. So he's driving through this parking lot, going a very normal, slow speed, and out of absolutely nowhere, which still, I know the parking lot, I still don't even understand how this is physically possible. What happened? This car was going like 50 miles an hour and broadsides him and totals his boat of a car. Well, thank God he wasn't super hurt. I mean, there were some definite minor injuries, but not anything too major. But of course, he ends up getting the insurance settlement. He ends up being able to buy the car that he wants. The car that he wanted, though, required having great credit. So I went with him down to the place, and the place is giving him a hard time. They're saying, well, we can sell you the car, but we're going to give you this insane interest rate because you need XYZ credit in order to get this lower rate. And again, this is years ago. So I'm with him and, I start talking and working my little magic. And he ended up walking away with the car of his dreams for a very low interest rate. But there was a whole debacle that happened in the middle of it, which I won't bore you guys with. But let's just say that a poor person no longer has that job at that car dealer. anymore as a result. But here's an example where he got what he wanted, but it wasn't in the safest way possible. He didn't qualify or quantify how he wanted to get it. He just knew what he wanted and didn't put any protective measures in place. So that's one major tip. Make sure when you are manifesting that you are qualifying. I want this, but I want it in the safest way possible, especially when it comes to money. A lot of people say, oh, I want money. I want this amount. And then all of a sudden someone in the family dies, and that's how they get it, through an inheritance. And then when they get the money, they think, well, it really would have been nicer to have that person alive than have this money. On a more positive note, my husband still, and in the past, became this super manifester. So it started off with us taking a walk. And as we're on the walk, he's talking about he really wishes that he could have someone who really believed in his music, who was willing to put some money forward to kind of help him with the equipment that he needed in order to really launch his hobby to another level. And we're talking about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that would be really, really cool. And I'm kind of thinking about people in his life and people that we knew, and I'm like, I don't really know of anyone in that position as of now, but yeah, that sounds super awesome. And he started off with saying the line, it would be nice. And then he basically maps out how this person would be, how they would love his music, how they really would take an interest in him, and how they would be there to financially back some of the pieces of equipment that he would want. So, I'm listening to it. I don't have doubt, but I'm more so sitting there thinking, I don't really know of anyone in our life actively that fits that bill, but who knows? So 2 days later, out of nowhere, this friend of his that they've been friends for a very long time, but hadn't been in super active communication, comes out of nowhere, basically had made it big off of some online thing, and basically was like, dude, I love you. I really love your music. I know you've been wanting to start your career up a little bit more with that. And so here, I'm going to be sending you a few things. And a couple days later, what shows up but these huge boxes of the exact equipment that he said he needed, which was wild, right? So my eyes were bugging out of my head, and I was like, oh my goodness. So maybe a one-off, right? No big deal. Super cool though, super happy for him. So a month goes by, and we're walking, and we smell someone barbecuing something awesomely delicious. And he mentions, oh, I would really love to have a gas grill barbecue, because at the time we only had like the small little charcoal Weber one. And so he's talking about it would be nice to have this gas grill barbecue. And I'm thinking, okay, I have no clue what those costs. I have no clue or interest in buying one and putting it together. And so a couple days later, we get a call from our friends, and they're like, hey, we're moving. Is there any way you guys can come over and help us? Yeah, sure, of course. Now, I've been to their house multiple times, but I've never been in their backyard because their backyard was kind of configured strange, and it was kind of like a shared space with their neighbors. And so it was kind of uncomfortable to go back there. So I'd only really been to the front and side of the house, never been to the back. Never been invited back there, never really put much thought as to what could be back there. So we get to their house, we're helping them move, and towards the end, my friend's husband pulls my husband outside, and he was like, hey, I've got this beautiful gas grill barbecue, and we can't take it with us. Would you like this? And I hear this resounding whoop from outside. And so I kind of come over to the door, and I'm like, what's going on? And he was like, I'm getting a gas grill barbecue. And I start cracking up. And, I'm telling my friend, oh my God, a couple days ago, we were literally talking about this. And you guys just bequeathed this to us. Like, how awesome was that? So a couple weeks later, again, we're taking a walk. And we see somebody has this beautiful boat in their front yard. And it was spring at the time, so it was boat season. So again, my hubby goes, it would be nice to have a friend with a boat who could invite us out to the ocean or a lake or whatever and just go boating. Like, wouldn't that be awesome? And I'm like, yeah, that would be awesome. But again, I'm thinking within our immediate group of friends, I don't know anyone who has a boat. I don't know anyone who has a boat that I would trust driving me on any bit of water. And so again, in my mind, just kind of put the thought out. The next day, I am not making this up, nor would I lie because I have no reason to. But the next day, out of nowhere, he gets a message from a friend that he went to high school with. So this is a long time ago, random out of nowhere. The guy was like, oh my God, how are you? I actually just found out I live pretty close to you. Me and the wife and the kids, we go out boating every weekend. Would you guys like to join us? Now, as he's reading the message, I see the look on his face and he's reading it in his head, not out loud. So I come over and I'm like, are you okay? What's going on? And he just puts the phone up to me and he goes, we literally talked about this yesterday. So at this point, I start teasing him and I said, you need to start manifesting a lotto ticket or something because this is getting wild. Almost anything and everything that you say you want ends up coming to fruition. And so, I'm going in my mind and I'm thinking, is he prognosticating? Like, is he already knowing these things are going to happen and he's just kind of in his mind already prepared for them? Or is he truly manifesting? And lo and behold, a couple months later, he's talking about this specific thing that he wants. And I have really no understanding of what this is because it's a piece of music equipment and that's not my genre. I don't really understand all that stuff. I'm not a musician. And he's talking about it. And he's talking about how he scoured the internet and there's not one anywhere, right? Like they don't make these anymore. Anyone who owns one of these isn't selling them. They're super high quality, but they're also super, super rare. And I start to chuckle because he says, wouldn't it be nice to have one of those? And I just laugh and I said, I don't know. I guess we'll find out in the next couple days when you get a random call about one. So lo and behold, a couple days later, he gets a call. It says, hey, got a friend. He's selling a whole bunch of his equipment and he has this specific piece of equipment. I am not joking, you guys. And he's selling it cash. It's actually still in the box. He bought it. He never opened it. Life took a little bit of a turn for him. And he is selling it. And you get first dibs. So he's saying, I've never heard of this person who's selling it, but, it's so-and-so's friend. So he's thinking he should know him. So we walk up to this house in order to see this piece of equipment. And this very slender, tall man comes out. And, we're so-and-so. And meeting this person, the person goes, oh, I went to this show with you guys a couple years ago. And we're both blankly looking at this person because neither of us recognize this person at all. And he goes, oh, the last time you saw me, I was 200 pounds heavier. And it clicks now all of a sudden who this person is. And we're sitting there and we're going, oh my God, you look amazing. But unfortunately, the person looks so amazing because they had cancer and they had lost a ton of weight. So honestly, I went into me mode, started praying and, really having this really awesome, deep discussion with this man. Meanwhile, my husband gets the exact piece of equipment that he was looking for. It was still in the box and had never been opened. The original packing tape was on this thing. And, he's super happy. It ended up being a legacy piece. So every time he plays with it, it's in honor of that man. I'm getting all choked up. Can you tell? But really, really beautiful way of that coming about. Unfortunately, someone had to go through something awful like that for it to manifest, but that person ended up getting the money that they needed for their treatment for that time. So everything happened in a very, very happy, wonderful way. But those are just some really exciting, wonderful examples of someone who so purely believes with all their heart that whatever it is that they ask for, it just comes. And when I bring it up to my husband, he even says, I'm not putting a whole ton of energy behind it, but he realizes he always says the same thing before it happens. It would be nice. So other people I've seen manifest things, and they have different sayings, or they have different rituals and things that they do in order to make their manifestations happen. I've seen people who it's almost sight unseen. My mom is one of those with parking spaces. She literally says, I want a parking space in front, and out of randomly nowhere, one will pop open for her. And it's just that deep-seated faith and belief that it is going to happen. And that's the true part of manifestation, is the belief. So when it starts to happen, don't second guess yourself. Don't buy into the fear. Make sure it really is what you want. Do all the proper steps that you need to do in order to make it happen, and it will happen. And I'm so excited for all of you who are probably going to give some of these things a whirl. Thank you again so much with all my heart for listening. I wish you all an absolutely amazing, glorious, wonderful rest of your week.